future of the music business. This is Steve Gordon. Today I want to explore the role of the music publisher in the music business. And to do that, I invited Jake Wisely, co-president of a leading indie music publisher, Bicycle Music. Jake, welcome to the future of the music business.
Thanks for having me.
Just to set the stage for our conversation, music publishing has to do with the business of songwriting and composing music rather than recording music, which would be the record business. Music publishing concerns songwriters and composers and their relationships with their representatives, the music publishers. Today, we'll discuss how songwriters and composers make a living in the music business and how music publishers assist them in doing so. But before getting into detail on the role of music publishers, such as Bicycle, I just want to take a few minutes out to discuss your career, Jake, because you've had a really interesting and diverse background in the music business. I read in your bio that you basically started your career at ASCAP as director of membership in their Chicago office. First of all, Jake, tell us a bit about ASCAP, what it does, and why they call it a performing rights organization rather than a music publisher.
All right. I actually started my career more in the record side of the business prior to entering maybe more the publishing side, working at ASCAP. So in the late 80s, it was more about independent record labels than it was music publishing for me. So it was a real eye-opener to start as a membership representative of ASCAP in Chicago, where my main goal was to, basically sign up new songwriters, those, writers who had potential to go on and receive, broadcast performances of their works, however that goes from live performance all the way through to, terrestrial radio. At the time, there was no such thing really as satellite radio, and the internet was, was just a notion of how music could be, used there. So, we supported the membership in any which way we can, which was through, hosting showcases and events, sponsoring, opportunities for these acts to perform at South by Southwest or CMJ or other music conferences, and, linking up with, record labels, A&R people, even producers, booking agents, managers, anything that really, assisted the, songwriter or the songwriter in the working band, with, their career growth. And of course, ASCAP's, kind of neutral, status in the world made it for a great place to support as much, of the songwriter and music publisher, industry and profession as we could. I mean, our only competition was BMI and to a certain extent, CSAC. With respect to domestic songwriters. So it was a very broad job that sometimes it was just feeding touring musicians as they came through Chicago, taking them out to dinner. Other cases it was helping to sort through other legalese and things they may have been contending with as songwriters.
Yeah.
So ASCAP's role. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I like some of the things you've been saying because, technically ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC are performing rights societies or organizations, and their basic function is just to collect the money from users of music like radio, TV, venues, and to turn around and pay the writers their performance royalties. But a lot of people who sign up with these organizations just don't know all the resources that they have and their ability to help and their intention if you, approach a person like you at ASCAP when you were there, to help out. A lot of people don't know that these organizations do more than just collect performance royalties.
That's true. And it's all about having a relationship there. Obviously the membership is very large and the membership department, by comparison is pretty focused, but, pretty much all of the PROs make a great effort to, support their membership in more ways than just licensing, and paying, royalties. Can be subjective really based on those, personal relationships.
Well, let's switch gears. And, I know that you moved to the West Coast and had, jobs at both EMI Music Publishing and Universal Music Publishing. Tell us, first of all, how these organizations, these companies, were different than ASCAP and your role at these organizations.
Well, it wasn't dissimilar in that, my job was to, more or less find the next big thing, identify the songwriter who was going to go on to earn a lot of money. At ASCAP, that motivation was to maintain ASCAP's effective market share, so that its weight in negotiations with broadcasters, was substantial enough to keep the numbers going up. And, it's not dissimilar at EMI or Universal, albeit ASCAP not for profit. These are, major music conglomerates whose motivation is certainly to earn. And with EMI and Universal, my experiences were incredible with respect to learning the publishing business, learning the pitfalls as well as the upsides and nuances of the business, where the money comes from, how various types of deals can or are made. And, my experience there also led me to understand that I was probably more suited for the independent music publishing world.
That's interesting. We're going to get back to that in a second, but let me go to the statement where the money comes from. We know that ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC collect monies from radio, TV, nightclubs, and other places that perform live music, and they collect those performance royalties and turn around and pay the songwriter. And basically, that's the only stream of money they deal with. Now, a music publisher, of course, would be affiliated with these PROs, and they would get money. 50% of the public performance royalty would go to the publisher, and 50% goes directly to the writer. So that's one income stream that a music publisher has. What are the other income streams and the other ways that publishers generate money for songwriters?
Well, mechanical royalties, in the form of, compositions that are sold on, compact disc or digital download, or even now, through streaming, services, which is obviously the next wave here, are, a big stream. It used to be much larger in the heyday of, the record business and the publishing business. Record sales, mechanical royalties from record sales really constitute the largest part of earnings. That has since dwindled, hopefully to rise again with the rise of streaming, internet radio and other streaming services. Otherwise, synchronization income has become a much larger portion of the pie. Publishers put great effort into securing uses in film, TV, video games, commercials, advertising, trailers for film, all different types of new media. And then there's a whole host of other income from print, sheet music and the online sheet music and use of lyrics online are becoming a growing market. For that matter, merchandise and use of songs, other mechanical uses of songs with respect to toys and things like that, add a little bit of icing on the cake. But there's really infinite ways that songs can be used in, commercial opportunities, and publishers benefit from all of those.
Yeah, just to interject an anecdote, I cleared Born to Be Wild for a national TV commercial that was hooked up with a greeting card that when you opened it would play the song. It was to sell insurance. And we paid nearly $1 million for that privilege, half of it going to the music publisher and half of it going to the record company, which owned the recording of Born to Be Wild, but the publisher did very well. And it seemed like they were very used to getting that kind of offer every week for a song like Born to Be Wild. So there is money to be made. But you said that your experience, you felt more comfortable in an indie environment. And then you went on to help acquire Bicycle, and now you are a leading indie publisher. Why do you feel more comfortable as an indie rather than working for a major?
Well, the sky's the limit, with a well-financed, independent and in terms of the type, size, shape of deal that you can make. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and may not be the most corporate animal, and toward that end, there was just a more limited scope of what I was expected to do within the context of doing A&R at a major music publisher. I can sign something that isn't necessarily going to be successful on the charts, but might be more important for synchronization, or might be a composer more important for his or her earnings from performance of their scores or other film and TV works. Whereas at the majors there was more of the notion of, at the time anyways, chasing the charts, finding that next big thing, and really not broadening out from that, even trying to enter into finding opportunities for exploitation, was really the job of another department. And at least in the independent world, you can wear a lot of hats, right, not step on a lot of people's toes in the process, and ultimately bring more opportunity to the table that that majors may not necessarily be interested in. They already have large, diverse catalogs, and to be able to build a large and diverse catalog ultimately from scratch is quite an opportunity.
Yeah, I know what you're saying from having been at Sony for many years. People are pigeonholed into their roles, and at the end of the day, it was just about the stars. And, I think in an indie environment, you get to do a lot more things and have a lot more fun. But talking about majors, you do seem to have some major writers looking at the website, like Dwight Yoakam, Cyndi Lauper, Roy Ayers, Nine Inch Nails, Tammy Wynette. Tell us the basic deal. Not necessarily at Bicycle, but in the publishing business generally, between a music publisher and a songwriter. First, a emerging songwriter, and then somebody like, say, Cyndi Lauper, who's established. What are the basic deals, and how would the novice deal differ than already successful writer deal? Would they be different?
Sure. And let me first start by saying, all of the songwriters and artists that you mentioned were really brought to our catalog through purchases of catalogs and acquisitions. We do not actually have those writers. Obviously, some who have passed away, others who are no longer active, but ultimately those that you mentioned were through catalog acquisition, which is one type of deal that we make. Buying copyrights. In certain instances, you have heirs or estates that are looking to sell through all of the rights associated with some of these writers. So we've actually broadened our rights base, we'll call it, into many other streams, including sound recordings, artist royalties, name and likeness, various other types of performance income from places like Sound Exchange for featured performers, or even sound recording copyright ownership. And that said, we absolutely are active in signing new songwriters and signing legacy songwriters to new deals as well. And they can take many shapes. First and foremost, for a lot of the more legacy artists who are more interested in retaining their rights for the long haul, it's very simply an administration deal where we will go out and handle all of the title registration at societies throughout the world. We will register the copyrights with the U.S. Copyright Office. We'll license uses wherever they may be desired, and that may be through streaming music services or background music services to record labels, to film and TV and beyond. Ultimately we then account that income to those writers, and those tend to be percentage-based deals, and the terms often vary based on whether or not that songwriter is seeking an advance royalty payment. So the more they get up front, the less favorable those terms can be. So the rates are anywhere, from 90-10, where we would just retain 10% of, gross receipts, all the way up to 25%, depending on how aggressive, again, we are with the advance. So the terms can vary. 25% typically ends up being, the share that publishers retain under a co-publishing agreement, which traditionally splits that copyright 50-50 between the songwriter and the publisher, often coming with, perpetual, at least for the life of copyright, worldwide administration. Certainly territories are, subjective and can be excluded, but that 75-25 split is really based on the notion that 50% is the songwriter share and the other 50% is the publisher's share, split 50-50. Hence, on gross receipts, 75-25. So, then, of course, there's the outright publishing deal that was more traditional in the earlier days of rock and roll and country music, where songwriters and still are certainly being signed to full publishing agreements where they don't retain any share of copyright. These are often work for hire agreements as well that can't afford these writers great opportunity through the aggressive work of their publishers to exploit those songs, and the resulting songwriter share, which ends up being about 50% of the gross income generated from music sales and performance and licensing, still can be quite substantial. And of course, for a publisher, having 100% of the control can be a great benefit.
Well, the co-pub deal, the 25% deal, seems to be the most popular. But does that mean that songwriters have gotten more powerful, that they've been able to avoid the full publishing agreement, which is a 50-50 split? Now they're taking 75%. What's behind that kind of popularity of the co-pub deal, which isn't more favorable to publishers? Have publishers become less powerful and songwriters become more powerful? What's going on with that?
Well, I think the evolution of the industry, has certainly, developed different standards, and competition is really what that's all about. Okay. And, when it comes time to, bid on, the next big thing, certainly, one way to improve your deal is to make sure that songwriter actually retains some portion of the copyright. There's many terms that obviously have come to benefit the songwriters over time. And, the pendulum swings a little bit. Really back in the 90s, there was a lot of competition, and there was a lot of publishers doing co-publishing deals that actually included reversions of rights, contractual reversions, where those rights would come back to the songwriter at, under a certain term. And, to me, that's basically a glorified administration deal. So there really is a movement, I think, in the different direction now, for life of copyright, but that co-publishing remains a very strong standard, particularly in rock and pop music.
I think we should point out this is a lot like baseball. We're not talking about minor league players here, or guys who never really made it. We're talking about songwriters who have an established record of success and who are making real money. The major publishers are not going to sign you unless you already have strong income flow, or you just got a Rihanna placement, So people should know that they just can't walk off the street into some publishing company and expect, a big advance and a co-pub deal. But let me ask you this. Is there more room for emerging artists, songwriters at Bicycle than, say, a Warner Chappell, who really just maybe wants to deal with the biggest players out there?
Well, again, I think it's subjective. Certainly there are major music publishers who are willing to take a risk on a developing writer. The size and shape of the deal may be very different, and so the risk is mitigated to a certain degree. But certainly I think independents are generally more willing to take a flyer on something that again, doesn't have a huge price tag attached to it, but that they can get their hands dirty with and be involved. But I think it would be a real generalization to say that indies are more prone to that. You're somehow limited by budget in a lot of these instances, and so sometimes it's more about doing no advance admin deals and finding great opportunity that way through developing with sweat equity, and eventually those deals can turn into co-publishing or other types of deals over time. But it really is a subjective thing. Each company, each head of acquisition. There's really a lot of different executives who have different styles as well, and budgets will always be a part of how much risk you can take.
Now, question on the competition. You said in the 90s there was increasing competition among publishers for successful catalogs or successful writers. But now we seem to have a lot of consolidation. It's a little scary for me because I clear music for a living to some extent for producers of movies, television shows, videos, concerts, and we have to pay the publishers for the right to use songs that we want to use, say, in a documentary. And now that Sony ATV, which is one of the biggest, acquired EMI, which I think was the biggest, there seems to be a real consolidation. So when I clear, say, 100 songs, Jake, for a documentary, 80% will belong to Sony ATV/EMI, Warner Chappell, Universal, and BMG, which is a little scary because they kind of control what these documentary filmmakers have to pay for music. And say we pay $1,000 for basic cable, and there are 100 cues in your documentary, that's $100,000. This is a little scary for a documentary filmmaker. So that's how it's affected my practice. What do you make of the consolidation of the music publishing business from your point of view?
Well, I actually think that it can create opportunity. There's a certain amount of attrition with the majors that comes from not only those deals that were done that included contractual reversions, but there is terms that expire and future works to be had from some of these great writers. There are actually termination rights in accordance with the Copyright Act that can allow certain writers to reclaim their rights at certain times. Again, this really affects more legacy songwriters, but there comes a time when songwriters feel like they're getting lost in the shuffle at companies that large and with catalogs of a couple million songs, as you refer to Sony ATV and EMI combined. It's massive. But at the same token, we work with those companies all the time and facilitate opportunities for songs that we co-publish with them. In certain instances, these companies actually administer rights that we control. Or rights that we own, I should say. They control those rights. And so, there is a spirit of cooperation amongst publishers, and the idea is to certainly not be, I think in this day and age, cost prohibitive in terms of, the documentary filmmaker or, the new media startup, those kinds of things. It can be a challenge, I grant you, but, everyone is looking to make money off of what they do. I mean, obviously there are not-for-profits and nonprofits that are certainly taken into account, and documentary filmmaking is certainly we realize not a hugely commercial endeavor, and the fees, at least from our side of things, are commensurate. Right. Just so happens that there are documentaries that include 100 songs, like you point out, and so that can become cost prohibitive over time. But toward that end, I think that there is a way as an independent to be a little more accommodating sometimes than the majors, who at least historically had rate cards, and there wasn't a lot of subjective consideration for certain licensing. I think that's really changed now that mechanical royalties have dropped so significantly based on music piracy, the internet, and the lack of physical sales anymore for the quick fix of income.
Well, let's talk about the general environment of music publishing and then how Bicycle fits in. In the 90s, at the peak of the recording business's success, coming off of Thrillers selling 30 million albums, we were selling 10 million Pearl Jams, 10 million Mariah Careys, 10 million Celine Dion. It wasn't unusual. Now it's more like if you sell 1 million, you've had a great experience rather than the 10 million that we used to sell. So the sales of records has gone way down, and from 15 billion, I think, in the U.S. to around less than 7 billion. So, and that's not accounting for inflation. And publishers would get their pennies, as we've discussed, mechanicals from every record sale. 9.1 cents is the compulsory rate. But now that money, that stream has dwindled to a trickle. Now, has that really devastated the music publishing business as much as the record business, or have you guys found other ways of making money?
Well, the publishing business was always a little more diverse than the record business to begin with. The record companies were often, giving away rights in exchange for promotion, basically for synchronization on television, for instance, and that was something that publishers never were going to do, or at least in a much more limited capacity when participating in the developing artists' earnings. But ultimately, I would say what? Can you reiterate the question for me again? I got an instant message right in the middle of this, and I made the mistake of looking at it.
The record business has been decimated by the internet, which is a huge copying machine, and sales may not be down because they're selling more singles, but gross income in the record business is down by half in the last 12 to 15 years. And I was wondering if the publishing business was as devastated, and I think you were pointing out that publishers made their money in a lot of different other ways than just mechanicals or record sales, and that might compensate for the loss in mechanical income.
Yes, thank you. There was a lag, whereas the record industry was affected, immediately by the advent of Napster. There was a lag that, probably 3 years later we started to feel the impact that the record labels felt more immediately. And we were able to offset those losses through, greater efforts at synchronization. We also saw performance income increasing during those years. And while there's been a bit of a ebb and flow in performance recently, the general trend remains growth with the advent of a lot of new broadcasters. Now, the record industry really stands to benefit from the broadcast performance royalty as well. And I think it's inevitable that sound recording copyright owners and future performers will begin to see more and more, from broadcast performance, as they do now from digital sources and satellite sources such as Sirius XM and the Pandoras and Spotifys of the world. So ultimately, I would say that while there was a lag, we were insulated to a certain degree. But absolutely, we were punished by the same trend in declining record sales. Right. And, toward that end, we just had a little bit longer time to see it coming and to adjust our practices and business models to compensate for it.
I see. Well, in terms of broadcast revenues, let's just make a footnote here that radio is still not paying record companies. Radio pays music publishers and songwriters through ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, but there's still no performance royalty right for record companies with respect to normal broadcast. But that might be changing because you have such high fees on digital radio that parties such as the Clear Channel, which is the biggest terrestrial analog broadcaster in the United States, is now seeming to join forces with Pandora in trying to get the digital rates down because they're doing more digital broadcasting. In return, they've made overtures or given signs and actually done deals that they will pay record companies for normal broadcast. But to get back to our discussion today, let's focus a little bit on Bicycle to conclude our conversation. Tell us about the culture of Bicycle. You've acquired catalogs, but you also deal with songwriters. Can you give us, a feel for how much of your business is from catalog and how much is from emerging songwriters or new songwriters or established songwriters you've done deals with directly?
I don't know the exact ratio of that. It's not really an analytic that we look at, but I mean, I can say, that a good portion of our catalog, probably upwards of 90% of it really is legacy works. In terms of, when I say 90%, I mean, in terms of just actual song count. In terms of earnings, a new artist can burn very hot, very quickly. So, in 1 year we may have a top songwriter that's somebody who's brand new, and when you put them up against, guys who have written, songs like Slow Ride or, Sister Christian or Eye of the Tiger or Cyndi Lauper, Time After Time, or Glenn Ballard's Man in the Mirror. I mean, you look at those earnings, you go, that's staggering. And then you realize that one quick burn, from a new artist can outpace even those, great classics. So, there's a real ebb and flow to it depending on, what we have in the marketplace. But, ultimately I would say that the culture, is that of boutique, independent, kind of, like I say, everyone wears a lot of hats. There's a total of 14 staff members, at the company, between New York, Los Angeles, and one guy in Nashville. We're growing. We've actually added 3 of those bodies in the last 4 months. You know what? I just realized we have 15 people because somebody started yesterday in our New York office. Okay. So, so it's a growth prospect, and we're growing the staff and infrastructure as the company and the catalog grows, and as we delve into other types of rights. But by and large, we want to always maintain that hands-on, attention for songwriters in the catalogs that we've signed or acquired.
Well, for emerging songwriters out there, what are you looking for? What would qualify someone to be seriously considered for a deal with Bicycle?
Well, it's always nice when somebody is going to meet us halfway. That they've already demonstrated their ability to network and find opportunity for themselves. If somebody is relying solely on their publisher, or for that matter, their manager or their record label or their booking agent to make or break their career, I think that that's somebody who's going to be sorely disappointed and probably pointing the finger very quickly at somebody other than themselves for why they're not the next big thing. But so we are always looking for a self-starter, somebody who's made their presence felt either through the A&R world or through the film and TV world, or perhaps even just if it's more of a band or an artist songwriter, through their social media and through their ability to build a fan base. And, obviously, character and personality and, being somebody who we could, really, feel good about working for is paramount. We want to make sure that we're working with people who, we can, have a basis of mutual respect and, can, like I say, meet halfway. We're here to help in every way we can, but, sometimes, the stars do not align. And where we think we might have success with, film and TV, we don't. Or where we think we might have success, with, record sales, we don't. So we try to make up for it in other ways.
Well, I got to ask you this question because I get it all the time, and I'd like to dispel a myth, and maybe you can help me with this. People call me all day. I have an internet presence, so I get a lot of phone calls, and a lot of the phone calls are, "Hi, my name is Joe, and such big company, music company, just told me that if I want a deal, I have to submit my music through a lawyer, so I'm calling you." Now, I think, personally, that that's just something music companies tell talent to just get off the phone. I don't really think that has any meaning. Do you?
I think there's no real rule. I mean, I think you can go on to a lot of record label or music publishers' websites and see some, way that you're, supposed to submit or frankly that where they may say they don't take unsolicited, submissions, and there can be reasons for that as well. Yeah. There can be liability associated with receiving unsolicited material. It's the same in the book publishing world. It's the same in the advertising world. The people are looking to avoid that liability. I do think, though, that labels and publishers are always going to. There's so many different ways that you can find talent that you want to work with. And usually the best way is through a trusted source, a lawyer or a manager or a lawyer
they know. A lawyer who's powerful and will take on the client who
exactly
represents other powerful artists.
Yeah.
But just the statement that, get a lawyer, I think just wanted to let people know that not necessarily any lawyer is going to get you a deal. Yeah. That said, let's finish up the conversation because I know you're a busy guy with what's going on with Bicycle. What are your next moves and what would you like to achieve in the next foreseeable future?
Well, we've recently acquired a number of independent, record label catalogs, Delicious Vinyls, catalog of hip hop hits from the decades, Tone Loc, Young MC, Far Side, Born Americans, and Brand New Heavies, incredible stuff there. The Wind Up Records catalog is most recent with all of the Evanescence, Creed, Seether, Finger 11. Really incredible, history of record sales in those catalogs. An oldies catalog, a punk rock, SoCal punk rock, catalog. And, we think diversification really is the key, and that the nature of a rights company, not just a publishing company or a record company, is key to, the future of, any music company. And, diversification in investing and, is kind of a standard of investing. And what we are, to our investors is a diverse investment. And that's, what we try to achieve. And, ultimately, I think continuing to grow through acquisition, but also through, new songwriter and, new artist signings is really, where we're headed.
So you're a record company as well as a publisher because you just said you're acquiring records. The catalog was a catalog of recordings rather than the songs. And so you're both music publisher and record company. Okay. Yep. And where do you think the next big income flow will come from? I mean, everybody, I think we're going to end with this conversation, everybody's complaining about Spotify not paying enough money or Pandora trying to get ASCAP's rates down. And there's constant carping about songwriters or artists who have tens of thousands of hits on one of these services who are making very little money from it. What's your point of view on that controversy?
Well, it's definitely all about scale at this point. I think the record business and to a large degree the publishing business are relying on the fact that streaming will become more ubiquitous and become a more broad way that music is consumed. And until such time as you're paying for not just music but movies, TV, perhaps even other intellectual property through maybe your ISP or through your your cell phone provider, that's a tenuous bet because right now we haven't seen the earnings. Certainly they're not making up for the lost mechanical revenues from declining CD sales. But at the same token, you have the biggest players in the digital domain entering the fray now. I mean, only recently iTunes Radio launched, obviously with Google Play and other Amazon efforts. I mean, you're seeing some of the biggest companies enter the fray, and that could be the real tipping point. So it's yet to be seen.
Well, where I see it is that Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine may be brilliant because they're starting the subscription service like Spotify, but there's no free version, so everybody's asking, well, how the hell are they going to make money if Spotify can't make money? But they've teamed up with AT&T, and it hasn't rolled out yet, but you'll be offered as an AT&T mobile subscriber the opportunity to get music from Beats Records. And depending on how that rolls out, it could be a stroke of genius because if you can get people to pay on a monthly basis, like I pay for Time Warner Cable, and you can get them to pay on a monthly basis for music, I think they may have something.
You said it. Absolutely.
All right. I'm glad you agree with me on that. Jake, it's been a real pleasure to have you. Do you have any parting shots for our audience?
Just want to thank you for the opportunity, Steve.
Thank you, Jake Wisely, co-founder of Bicycle Music. Best luck for continued success.